Tom sat alone in a small workshop on the starship Vora. The walls were covered with tools, wires, armor plates, and strange gadgets from alien worlds. A soft humming sound filled the room as the ship floated through deep space. Tom, a human mechanic, worked with focus, his hands moving quickly as he repaired a broken legged piece from an alien battlesuit. He was the only human on the ship. The rest of the crew were Zelarital, strong beings with glowing blue eyes and silver skin. They were known across the galaxy as fierce warriors. They didn't smile. They didn't laugh. And most of them looked at Tom like he was some kind of soft, strange animal, but they respected his skill. He could fix anything Zalari armor, weapons, engines even, things they didn't fully understand themselves. That's why he was allowed to stay. Just as he finished tightening the last bolt, the workshop door opened with a hiss. Tom looked up. She walked in, tall and quiet. Her name was Rhea. She wore her battle armor, though half of it was scratched and cracked. There was a long dent on her left shoulder and burn marks near the chest plate. Her long silver hair was tied behind her head, and her glowing eyes stared straight at Tom. "Need repairs?" Tom asked, setting his tool down. "Yes," she said in her usual calm voice. "Armor is not battle-ready." Tom nodded and stood up. "All right, take it off." Rhea paused, then turned around and started removing her armor, piece by piece. Her movements were careful, but strong, like someone who had done this 1,000 times. Tom watched silently. He had fixed her armor before, but this time, something felt different. She had been in a rough fight. The damage was serious. And she didn't say anything more than needed. Once she placed the damaged parts on the work table, she stood back. Tom picked up the chest plate first and examined it. "Plasma burns," he muttered. "You got hit hard." Rhea didn't answer. He glanced at her. She was standing still, hands behind her back, watching him. Tom shook his head and got to work. He cleaned the burnt edges, replaced melted wires, and added a new energy core to the chest unit. As he worked, he asked, "You okay?" "I survived," she replied simply. "That's not what I asked," Tom said, looking at her. There was a pause. "I have no major injuries," Rhea finally said. Tom smiled a little. "You always answer like a robot. I am not a robot." "No," he said, "but you talk like one." Rhea tilted her head slightly, confused. "Is that bad?" "No," Tom said with a chuckle. "It's just ... different." They went quiet for a while. The only sound was the soft buzz of tools and the clicking of parts being fixed. After a few minutes, Rhea asked, "Why do you laugh?" Tom looked up from the shoulder plate. "Because it helps." "Helps what?" "Everything," he said. "Pain, fear, being alone." "I do not understand." Tom smiled again. "I didn't expect you to." She stepped closer to the table. Her glowing eyes focused on him. "Teach me." He paused, surprised. "Teach you to laugh?" "Yes." Tom scratched the back of his head. "That might take a while." "I have time." He looked at her for a moment. She was serious, maybe even more serious than usual. "All right," he said. "Here's a joke. Why did the alien cross the galaxy?" She blinked. "To conquer the stars?" "No, to get to the other wormhole." There was silence. Rhea looked confused. "That is not logical." Tom laughed. "Exactly. That's the point." She frowned slightly. "Strange." He nodded. "Yeah, but sometimes strange is good." Tom finished fixing the armor piece and placed it on the table. "Your shoulder plate is done. Just need to rewire the helmet now." Rhea nodded, watching his hands move quickly. For a while, neither spoke. Then she said, "The others say you are weak." Tom stopped working for a second. "I know. They also say you are ... clever." He looked up. "Do you think that too?" "I do not understand all your words. But I think ... your mind is fast." Tom smiled softly. "Thanks. I think your punches are fast." Rhea tilted her head again. "That is true," he laughed. "See? That almost sounded like a joke." She was quiet, but he thought he saw a small change in her eyes, not a smile, but something close. Tom finished the last adjustment and stood up. All right, armor's ready. Rhea stepped forward and picked up the pieces. Thank you. You're welcome. She turned to leave, but paused at the door. Next time, more jokes. Tom grinned. You got it. She walked out, and the door closed behind her. Tom sat back down, staring at the empty space where she had stood. He had fixed armor for many Zelari soldiers, but Rhea was different. Didn't talk much, but when she did, it stayed in his mind. She was a warrior. He was just a mechanic. But somehow, it didn't feel so far apart anymore. Somewhere in the silence of space, something had started to change, and Tom didn't know what it was yet. But it made him feel less alone. Tom sat in the cafeteria of the Vora, eating something that looked like gray jelly. It was food made for the Zelari, but it kept him alive. He missed Earth food, Friedreal, food, bread, eggs, coffee, but in space. You learned to take what you got. Across the room, Zelari warriors sat in silence. They didn't talk much, didn't laugh, didn't argue, only cold stares and straight backs. Tom sometimes felt like a small animal in a zoo, but one of them kept glancing at him. She sat with two other soldiers, her silver armor polished now. She looked the same as always, strong, quiet, focused. But every few minutes, her glowing eyes shifted toward Tom's table. Just for a second, Tom noticed. He tried not to look back, but his curiosity grew. Why was she watching him? After lunch, he walked down the hallway toward the engine room. The ship's lights flickered as they passed through a magnetic field. That was normal in this part of space. Then he heard footsteps behind him. He turned. It was Rhea. Oh, Tom said, surprised. You need more armor repairs already? No, she said. A pause. Then what's up? She stepped closer. You said you would tell another joke. Tom blinked. That's why you followed me? Yes. He chuckled. All right. Let me think. He scratched his head. Okay, what do you call a robot that takes a nap? Rhea stared. Sleeping unit. No, a robo-snore. Silence. Tom laughed at his own joke, even if it was bad. Rhea tilted her head. It does not make sense. That's what makes it funny, Tom said. It's silly. You're supposed to laugh because it's dumb. She was quiet for a moment, then asked, Do humans like things that are not logical? Sometimes, he replied. It makes life feel lighter, I see. They walked side by side now, slowly heading toward the lower deck. Rhea suddenly asked, Why do humans care so much about ... feelings? Tom stopped. What do you mean? You speak of laughter? Of fear? Of pain? Your kind shares these things often. Tom leaned against the wall, arms crossed, because it helps us connect. When you know someone's feelings, you understand them better. Rhea looked thoughtful. In my world, we are trained to control emotions. We do not show them, I've noticed, Tom said. But maybe sometimes showing them makes you stronger, not weaker. She didn't reply, but her eyes softened. Just then, a red alert flashed on the wall. A loud voice echoed through the hallway. Warning. Rogue machine unit detected on deck. 3. All crew stay clear until unit is secured. Tom's eyes widened. Deck 3? That's near the engine room. Before he could react, a loud crash shook the hallway. A damaged service robot burst through the door, sparking wildly. Its arm had a plasma cutter spinning out of control. Tom stumbled back. The machine aimed its cutter at him. But before the blade could strike, Rhea jumped in front of him, her arm raised. The cutter scraped her armor, leaving a deep mark, but didn't reach Tom. She moved fast to see and slammed her fist into the machine's core. It fell to the floor, twitching, then stopped. Smoke filled the hallway. Tom coughed and looked up at her. You okay? She checked her arm. Armor is scratched. No serious damage. Stood up, staring at her. Why did you do that? I was closer. It made sense to act. No, he said, shaking his head. That's not the real reason. You could have let me dodge. Rhea didn't answer. Tom stepped closer. You said your people hide feelings, but that wasn't logic. That was instinct. That was emotion. Her eyes flickered. Tom lowered his voice. Were you, worried about me? Rhea turned away slightly. I do not know. Tom gave a small smile. Then maybe you're starting to understand what it means to care. She looked at him again, her face calm but her eyes full of something new. Infusion, maybe, or curiosity, or both. They stood in silence for a moment, the broken robot sparking near their feet. Then Rhea spoke softly. Humans are strange. Tom grinned. Takes one to know one. She gave him a long look, not cold, not distant, just quiet. Then she turned and began walking back down the hallway. Tom watched her go, then looked at the broken robot. Something was changing. He could feel it. Not just in Rhea, but in himself too. He never expected to connect with a warrior from a distant world. He never thought anyone on this ship cared if he lived or died. But today, someone did. And maybe, just maybe, the gap between species wasn't as wide as everyone thought. The battle had ended. But the damage was everywhere. The ship Vora floated, slowly through a debris field. Black smoke still rose from one of its side engines. Red lights blinked along the walls. The medical bay was full. Soldiers rested, bruised and burned. The war never stopped for long. Tom sat alone in his workshop again, eyes on the armor plate resting on the table. But this one wasn't just any armor, it was Rhea's. She had returned from the mission barely standing. Her chest plate was cracked, the helmet was shattered, her leg armor was missing entirely. She had been carried back by 2 soldiers, unconscious and bleeding. Tom had rushed to the med bay as soon as he heard. Now, hours later, she was sleeping under care. He had her armor in front of him. His hands touched the burn marks slowly. Took heavy hits, he whispered to himself. Why did she push so far? He knew the answer deep down. She had always been strong, always ready. But something had changed in hers, something warmer. Even if she didn't understand it yet, Tom wiped the sweat from his forehead and got to work. He cleaned the chest plate first. It was dented from a direct plasma blast. He replaced the internal wires, adjusted the energy shield matrix, and started rebuilding the leg armor from scratch. It took hours. He didn't stop. Every time he paused, he thought about her eyes. The way she looked at him. The moment she shielded him from the rogue robot. The way she had followed him, just to hear a joke. He smiled at the memory. Time passed. At last, only one piece remained, the helmet. It was broken beyond repair. The glass was melted. The cum system was fried. He decided to build her a new one, a better one. Tom added a hidden layer of human tech inside a tiny sound system. It could play music or even store messages. Just a little thing, something. Human. He didn't tell anyone. He wanted her to discover it herself, as he placed the final panel into place. The workshop door opened quietly. He turned. Rhea stood there, weak but awake. Her left arm was in a support brace. Her steps were slow. But she was standing. You're not supposed to be out of bed, Tom said, stepping toward her. I feel better now. She replied, That doesn't mean you're ready to walk around the ship. She looked at the armor pieces laid out on the table. Her fingers brushed over the clean chest plate. You fixed it. Tom nodded. It took all night, but yeah, it's ready. She looked at him. Thank you. He shrugged. I couldn't sleep anyway. They stood there quietly for a while. The ship was silent outside, just a soft hum of systems still running. Then she said, I remember being hit. I remember falling. I thought that would be the end. Tom's face turned serious. You shouldn't have gone in alone like that. I was doing my duty. He shook his head. You almost died. Rhea looked down at the armor. I thought of something while I was lying there. Something strange. What? Up slowly, I thought of you. Tom blinked. Me? Yes. Not the battle. Not the mission. Just your face. Your voice. Your joke. He didn't speak for a moment. Rhea stepped closer. Why did I think of you, human? Tom swallowed. I don't know. Maybe because you care? She tilted her head. Is that what this feeling is? He nodded slowly. Maybe. She touched the new helmet. This is not standard. What did you add? Tom gave a small smile. A gift, you'll see. She didn't ask more. Instead, she sat on the edge of the table.
Eyes.
Her hand rested near his taunt. Began placing the armor plates into their case. Rhea watched him closely as he picked up the last piece. She leaned in slightly and whispered, Do you love me, human? Tom's hands froze. The armor plate slipped slightly in his grip. He turned to look at her. Her expression hadn't changed, but her voice had softened just enough to carry emotion. He didn't know what to say. Why did you ask that? He finally said, his voice quiet, Because my heart feels strange, and your name stays in my thoughts, she replied, eyes locked on his. And I want to know if that means something. Tom placed the armor down carefully. He sat beside her. Now, close but not touching. I don't know what love means to your people, he said. But for humans, it means you care about someone more than yourself. You think of them. You miss them. You protect them. You feel safe with them. She nodded slowly. Then I think I am learning. Tom looked at her glowing eyes, her silver skin, the bruise on her cheek from battle. You saved me twice, said. You fixed me twice, she replied. They both smiled, small and quiet. Tom reached out, slowly, carefully, and placed his hand over hers. No words, just silence, but the silence spoke enough. To hearts one human. One alien beating side by side in a metal ship lost in space, and in that moment, nothing else in the galaxy mattered. Since that moment in the workshop, Tom's hands hadn't stopped shaking. He remembered her words clearly. Do you love me? Human. He had frozen. He had said nothing. Now he sat alone, staring at the same armor he had fixed with care, the same pieces he had touched with steady hands. But now everything felt different. Heavy. Tom hadn't seen Rhea in 2 days. He had stayed in his workshop, pretending to be busy, pretending he didn't care. But deep down, he knew he was avoiding her, because he didn't know what to say. Because he was afraid. Do I love her? He whispered to himself. He wasn't sure. She was a warrior from another world, trained to fight, not feel. And he was just a human mechanic, small and simple in the eyes of the galaxy. But when she had whispered those words, it wasn't like a soldier giving an order. It was like someone standing on the edge of something new, afraid to fall but hoping someone would catch them. He hadn't caught her. He had just frozen. Meanwhile, Rhea stood on the upper deck of the Vora, her back-straight eyes fixed on the stars outside. She hadn't worn her armor since that day. Her body had healed mostly, but her mind felt clouded. She had spoken from her heart, at least, what she believed was her heart. The feeling was new to her. Strange. Warm and painful at the same time. She had asked the question, and Tom hadn't. Answered, was it wrong to ask? Was she wrong to feel? Other Zalari walked past her, giving her quiet glances. Some whispered, she's been spending too much time with the human. She has changed. She's losing discipline. Rhea heard them. But she didn't care. All she could think about was Tom's silence. On the 3rd day, a new mission alert sounded. Captain Dorn, a strict Zellery leader, gathered a team for a risky operation near an asteroid belt. A hidden enemy drone base had been spotted. They needed fast, quiet action. Small team would go. Rhea volunteered. Captain Dorn raised an eyebrow. You are still recovering. I am ready, she said flatly. He gave a slow nod. You lead. The unit then. Mission starts in 2 hours. Tom heard about the mission later. His heart dropped. She was going into danger again. Why now? He rushed to the hangar bay, arriving just as Rhea and her team were preparing to board the dropship. She wore her armor again, silent, silver, shining. Rhea, Tom called out. She turned slowly. Tom walked up to her. Why are you doing this? It is my duty. No, That's not the only reason, he said. You're running from something. I am a soldier. I do not run. Yes, you do. You're running from me. She didn't reply. Tom stepped closer. You asked me something? Answer, I was scared. I still am. If you go now, without hearing what I have to say. Rhea's glowing eyes looked into his. There was pain there. Not physical, but something deeper. Say it now, she whispered. Tom swallowed. I've never loved anyone outside my kind. I didn't even think it was possible. But every time I see you, I feel something. When you laugh, well, try to. Laugh it makes me happy. When you're hurt, it scares me. And when I thought I might lose you. He stepped closer. I realized I already care more than I ever meant to. Rhea's eyes didn't blink. Her armor chest plate rose and fell with a slow breath. I do not fully understand human love, she said. You don't have to, Tom replied. I'll help you. We'll figure it out together. Long pause followed. Then she said, this mission is important. I must go. Tom nodded. I know, but I will return, she added. I promise. He gave a small smile. Then I'll be waiting. She stepped into the ship. The door closed. Tom stood there as the engines roared and the dropship launched into space. Hours passed. Tom sat in the control room, staring at the screens. He wasn't allowed to join the mission, but he watched the signals.
Ow.
One by one, the team's data showed progress. Then an alert. Rhea's signal vanished. No, Tom whispered. No. He stood up, heart pounding. Captain Doran entered, looking serious. We lost contact with her unit. We believe they entered a signal dead zone near the asteroid field. Tom's voice shook. You have to send help. We can't risk more lives without knowing the situation. I'll go, Tom said. You're a mechanic, Doran replied. Not a soldier. Tom stepped forward. Then I'll fix what soldiers can't. The captain stared at him for a long moment, then nodded slowly. You have 1 hour. Tom suited up, took a small shuttle, flying toward the last known location. He moved carefully between the asteroids, dodging debris and wrecked drones. Then he saw a damaged escape pod. He landed nearby and rushed out. Inside, it barely conscious, was Rhea. Her armor was cracked again. She had burns on her side. But she was alive, Rhea. Tom shouted, pulling her into his arms. Her eyes opened weakly. You came. Of course I did, he said, holding her close. I thought I would not see you again. I told you, he whispered. I'd wait. She closed her eyes, resting her head on his shoulder. Tom activated the emergency beacon. Help would come soon, as the stars turned slowly above them. Tom held Rhea tighter, his heart full and quiet. Now he understood what her whisper had meant, and now he was ready to whisper back. The silence of space was broken by a loud alarm. All crew to battle stations. Repeat, all crew to battle stations. The enemy fleet had arrived. From the windows of the starship Vora, dozens of enemy ships could be seen moving toward the Vir-9 system. These ships were dark, sharp, and fast. Belonged to the Makoria machine race that wanted to wipe out all life in the galaxy. They had no heart, no soul. Only cold metal and code. Captain Dorn stood in the command room with a firm voice. They're trying to take Vir-9. If they get control of the planet, thousands will die. We stop them here. Every soldier nodded. Rheya stood among them, her silver armor shining, but her face calm. She was back on her feet, healed, focused, and Tom stood nearby, not as a soldier, but as part of the support crew. He was not wearing armor, but his bag was filled with tools, wires, small tricks only humans used. This time, he would not stay behind. The dropships launched. Rhea and Tom sat together as the ship flew toward the battle zone. Outside the window, light from laser beams flashed across space. Small fighters danced between enemy drones, firing and dodging. Tom checked the energy core in her chest plate. This will hold. Rhea looked at him. And you? Will you be safe? Tom smiled. I'll stay close to you. That's the safest place on the battlefield. She tilted her head. You trust me that much? He nodded. With everything. She said nothing, but her hand rested gently on his for just a second. The ship landed on a rocky hill near the Mechari base. Enemy machines were everywhere. Tall walking bots, flying drones, spider-like crawlers with sharp legs. The ground shook with every step they took. Raya led the charge. Her blade flashed. Her movements were smooth and fast. Tom stayed behind the front line, working fast. He connected broken wires, repaired comms units, and even used a small EMP bomb, something only humans still use to disable too. Mechari drones. The battle went on for hours. Smoke filled the air. Energy blasts lit the sky. Raya fought harder than anyone. But then she saw something. A group of engineers had been trapped by a fallen rock wall. Mechari crawlers were moving in fast. Without a second thought, she ran toward them. Raya, wait. Tom shouted from a distance, but she was already gone. She reached the engineers and blocked the first crawler's attack with her arm shield. She kicked another back and shouted, "Run!" The engineers escaped, but more enemies arrived. Too many. One crawler jumped and hit her side with a heavy strike. She fell to one knee. Another bot raised its sharp leg for the final blow, but then a flash of light, the bot exploded. Tom stood nearby, holding a smoking EMP grenade launcher. He ran to her. Sighed. You okay? Raya groaned. I told you to stay back. You also said I should trust you, Tom replied, smiling. She tried to stand, but stumbled. Tom helped her up and checked her armor. The chest units cracked. I'll fix it. Give me a minute. There's no time, she said, watching more bots heading their way. Tom opened his tool bag and worked fast as he repaired the armor. His hands moved over her chest plate, careful but fast. The wires sparked, and the energy core blinked back to life. Then he felt her hand on his. She leaned close and whispered again. Do you love me, human? His hands froze, just like before. But this time, he looked her in the eyes and answered softly, Yes, Raya, I do. She didn't smile, not exactly. But her eyes glowed a little brighter. She stood up fully, armor working again. Then stay alive, she said. You too, he replied. The battle pushed closer to the Mechari base. The team had one final task to destroy the main control tower. That powered all the enemy machines. Tom and Raya moved with the team. She led with blade and shield, and Tom supported with tools and quick thinking. At one point, he used a power cable to short-circuit a defense turret. Another time, he rerouted energy from a broken bot to charge their shields. No one expected a human to be useful in battle, but Tom proved them wrong. Finally, they reached the tower. Explosives were placed. A timer started 2 minutes until destruction. But then, the tower began to fall early. A power beam had hit its base. The explosion was speeding up. The team ran. Tom and Raya turned last. A metal beam crashed down between them. Tom was trapped on one side, Raya on the other. Tom, she shouted. I'm okay, he called out. Go get to the ship. Not leaving you, she yelled. He tried to climb over the beam, but the floor shook. Pieces began falling. Raya looked around, saw a path, and ran across the rubble. Sparks flew around her. Smoke burned her eyes. At last she reached him. She grabbed his hand. Together they ran behind them. The tower exploded. A wall of fire rose. They jumped into the nearest hole, rolled down, and landed just outside the blast. Dust covered them. Smoke filled the sky. They were alive. Barely hours later, back on the Vora, Tom lay on a bed in the med bay. His arm was bruised and his face was scratched, but he was smiling. Raya stood beside him, her own armor scorched. And cracked, you saved me, he said quietly. So did you, she replied. He looked up at her. That makes us even... She leaned down slightly. No, it makes us something more. He reached for her hand. She didn't pull away. Outside the window, the stars moved slowly again. The battle was over. Peace for now had returned, but something else had begun. Something stronger than war, something that no machine could destroy. Days passed after the Battle of Varanine. The enemy was defeated. The sky was calm again. The Vora floated through space, no longer shaking. Under fire. The ship was being repaired and the crew was resting in the medical bay. Tom lay on a soft bed, his right arm wrapped in a support band. The cut on his cheek had healed, and most of the bruises were fading. But he didn't feel weak. He felt stronger than ever. Not because of muscles or weapons, because he was no longer alone. Rhea visited him every day. She sat beside his bed, silent at first. Sometimes they said nothing. Sometimes they talked for hours. Their bond had grown. It was no longer just about armor and battles. It was about understanding each other, learning about each other's worlds, thoughts, and hearts. One evening, the room was quiet. A soft light glowed above. Tom sat up with a small pillow behind him. Rhea sat across from him, holding a small data cube. "What's that?" Tom asked. "My story," she said. "Your story." Rhea nodded. "Our people store memories in these cubes." "I brought one from home. I thought, maybe I can show you?" Tom smiled. "I'd like that." She placed the cube on the table. Soft light appeared, and an image formed in the air. A silver city, tall towers, green skies. Zelari warriors marching in perfect lines. "That's your home?" "Yes, the city." "Of Norel?" she said. "Where I was trained." The next image showed a younger Rhea, smaller, thinner, but still serious. She stood in a line with other children, wearing a training suit. Teacher shouted instructions. Tom watched quietly. "You were trained young," he said. "Yes," Rhea replied. "We were taught to fight, obey, and never show weakness." "Did it ever feel lonely?" She paused. "I did not understand loneliness back then, but now, maybe I did feel it." Tom looked at her. "I wish you didn't have to grow up." "Like that?" Rhea turned to him. "And you? What was your home like?" Tom leaned back. "Simple. I grew up on Earth, in a small town. Trees, rain, warm food. My mom used to make pancakes every Sunday." "Pancakes?" He chuckled. "Oh, have to make some for you one day." "I'd like that," she said. They smiled. Then silence returned. It's gentle and peaceful. Later that night, Rhea helped Tom walk out of the med bay. He was stronger now. Together they walked to the observation deck, a large window that looked out into deep space. Stars stretched forever. Tom leaned on the railing. Rhea stood beside him. "You know," Tom began, "I used to think love was only something humans understood, and now I know it doesn't belong to just one species." Rhea nodded. "Think I am learning what love feels like." Tom looked at her. "What does it feel like to you?" She was quiet, thinking. "It feels like peace when you are near, worry when you are hurt, and comfort when you speak." Tom smiled softly. "That's love." "I did not know I could feel such things," she added. "You're not a machine, Rhea. You're not just a soldier. You have a heart. Well, I was never taught to use it. You're using it now." She turned toward him. "Wait. What if others do not accept this? You and me? A human and a Zelari?" Tom took her hand. "Then we showed them that it's possible." A few Zelari passed by. Some looked, some did not. One of them stopped, a young warrior named Solene. He stared at Tom and Rhea, then bowed slightly. "You fought well together." Rhea gave a short nod. "Thank you." Solene turned and walked away. Tom looked at her. "Maybe that's a good sign." "Maybe," Rhea replied. "But even if it's not, I do not care." She held his hand tighter. The next day, Tom returned to his workshop. It felt good to be back among his tools and parts. Rhea joined him after her training shift. Together, they started working on a new armor piece-a-joint project. It was a mix of human design and Zelari technology. Strong but light, sharp but flexible. "What do you want to call it?" Tom asked. She thought for a moment. "Hope," Tom nodded. "Hope it is." As they worked, their movements were calm, smooth. They didn't need many words, Just quiet teamwork. Tom fixed wires. Rhea shaped the plates. At one point he accidentally dropped a tool. She bent down, picked it up and said, "You humans are clumsy." Tom laughed. "And you, Zilari, are too serious?" She raised an eyebrow. "Am I not learning to laugh?" He chuckled. "You're getting there. I will master it one day." He looked at her. "You already mastered my heart." Rhea paused, then said softly, "And you hold mine." The words were simple, but they meant everything. That evening, they returned to the observation deck. This time, they weren't alone. A few Zelaris stood around the window. A couple of human engineers who had joined the ship recently also stood. Nearby, Rhea and Tom stood in the middle, side by side. No one spoke, but no one objected either. The stars above shone quietly. The war was not over. More battles would come, more pain, more loss. But in that moment, there was something stronger than fear. Connection. Understanding love. Reya looked at Tom. "I still do not understand everything about humans." Tom smiled. "You don't have to. Just stay. I will." And together, they watched the stars, hand in hand. The stars outside were quiet, but inside the Vora, alarms rang once again. Captain Dorn stood in the command center, watching the large screen with narrow eyes. Hidden Mechri base had been discovered. This one wasn't just a station, it was a command center, deep under the surface of a dead moon. "This is where they control the last drone army," Dorn said. "If we destroy this base, the war ends." The crew listened in silence. Rhea stood near the front. Her armor was ready, her eyes calm. But her heart beat faster than usual, because Tom stood beside her. He wasn't a soldier, but he had chosen to join this final mission. Not just as support, but as part of the core team. "I want to help," Tom had said earlier that morning. "It's the last step. I want to face it with you." Rhea hadn't stopped him. She had simply said, "Then stay close." The team landed near the base at night, the surface of the moon glowing under a dull sky. The ground cracked under their boots. Dust rose with each step. Ahead stood a large steel gate. It was locked, protected by Mechri code. Tom stepped forward, pulling out a human-made code breaker, a tool built long ago by Earth engineers. It wasn't pretty, but it worked. "Let me try something simple," he said, smiling. He connected. The tool, sparks flew. Seconds later, the door opened. Even Rhea raised an eyebrow. "Strange tools, but useful." "That's what humans do," Tom said. "We solve problems in strange ways." Inside, the base was dark and cold. The walls were black metal. The air was dry. Mechri bots started appearing from the shadows. Their eyes glowed red. They moved fast, sharp claws clicking on the floor. Rhea drew her blade. "Stay behind me." "No chance," Tom replied, pulling a small EMP bomb from his bag. They fought side by side. Rhea cut down bots with skill and speed. Tom stayed close, throwing tools, hacking panels, even using small traps to slow the enemy. They weren't just surviving. They were winning, finally. They reached the core room, a giant chamber glowing with energy. At its center stood the control mind, a large machine brain, floating above cables and lights. "If we destroy that, it's over," Rhea said. But then a sound from the ceiling. A massive Mechri warbot dropped to the ground. Twice the size of a man, heavy armor, energy cannons, red eyes locked on them. It fired. The blast knocked Tom back. His tool bag flew across the room. Rhea jumped in front of him, blocking the second shot with her shield. "We have to destroy the core," Tom shouted. "But someone must distract the bot," Rhea said. She stood up and charged forward, drawing the bot's attention. She moved. Fast, dodging blasts, landing quick strikes. Tom crawled toward the control panel. Wires sparked. A red warning flashed. He worked quickly, bypassing the system. Connecting cables, another blast hit the floor near him, sending metal shards flying. "Rhea." He yelled, "I need more time." She nodded and pushed harder, fighting with everything she had. But the warbot was strong. They grabbed her by the arm and threw her across the chamber. Rhea. Tom screamed. She hit the wall hard, falling to the ground. The bot turned toward Tom now, stepping forward. Tom looked at the panel. It was almost ready. Almost. He saw a loose wire. Just one last connection. He knew what he had to do. He took the wire and pressed it into the core's main drive, knowing it would send a strong electric surge through the system and through him. He screamed as the energy burned through his arm, but the panel turned green. Core overloaded, a voice said. The lights blinked. The floor shook. The warbot froze, then shut down. Tom collapsed. Rhea opened her eyes slowly. Pain moved through her body, but she forced herself to stand. Across the chamber, she saw Tom lying on the floor, smoke rising from his hand. No, she whispered. She ran to him, falling to her knees. Tom opened his eyes slowly. His face was pale, his voice weak. Hey, ... I did it, you fool, she said, voice shaking. Why would you do that? He gave a small smile. You protected me so many times. I had to return the favor. Tears formed in Rhea's glowing eyes. She had never cried before. Not in training, not in war. But now tears fell. You cannot die, she whispered. You told me we'd figure it out together. He looked at her and whispered back then. Stay, please. I will, she said. She lifted him gently. The base was shaking, but the team rushed in. Together, they carried Tom back to the ship. Back on the Vora, Tom was placed in the medbay again. His arm was burned, but he was alive. The doctors used both human and Zalari tech to heal him. For 3 days, Rhea never left his side. And when he opened his eyes, she was the first thing he saw. You came back, said, smiling. I said I would, she replied. He reached out with his good hand. She held it tightly, and then she whispered, I love you too, human. His smile widened. You took your time saying it, he said. I wanted to be sure, she said softly. Now I am. Weeks passed. The war was over. It began. Tom's arm recovered. Rhea returned to training, but this time she laughed sometimes. She even told her own bad jokes. Together they built a new workshop. A shared space. One wall had a picture, a small photo Tom had saved from Earth. It showed the sky, with pancakes on a plate. I still want to taste these, Rhea said one morning. And I still want to see your world, Tom replied. One day, she promised. Hand in hand, they stood by the window, looking at the stars. Not just warriors, not just lovers, but something new. Proof that even across light years, even across metal and bone, two hearts can find each other and never let go.